So we're going to be taking a close look through these sports pages and see what's making the headlines. Now, our guests this morning are magnificent. The broadcaster, Sophie Nicolaou from the Highbury squad, and the Guardian's Jonathan Liew. Good morning to both of you. We're going to get straight into it, and we start with the Times. Now, they've done a deep delve into Arsenal's impressive start to the season. Right, they've come up with 4 key factors for their success this season. So let's split it up between the two of you. Jonathan, you can go first. What are the first and second key factors that they're talking about?
Well, gosh, the Times love a deep dive, don't they? Well, they've gone for Saliba in defence and Xhaka in midfield, and I think obviously both coming from different age profiles, kind of different. I've had different trajectories. Saliba very much a new presence in that defence, even though they signed him several years ago, 3 years ago, I think it was, and I've made him wait for his chance in the first team, and he's really looked like an acquisition to be reckoned with in that defensive line. And Xhaka, obviously, we know the journey he's been on with Arsenal. Looked on many occasions like he was going to be going to be leaving the club, was extremely unpopular with the fans, and yet trusted by every single manager. And he's playing a far more, I suppose, an aggressive role this season. He's getting forward, he's contributing with goals and assists, and I think it's testament to the way Arteta has managed to transform that team and kind of rehabilitate some of the faces in it.
And so that's the first and second one that's certainly working for Arsenal so far, which will certainly bring a smile to Sophie's face, no doubt. The third and fourth, according to the Times, Sophie?
They talk about attacking purpose and mentality monsters. And the attacking purpose is definitely true. If you look at Arteta in the 1920 season in terms of drop points from winning positions, they dropped 21 points. The following season, 8 points. Season after that, 11 points. And this season, Arsenal from winning positions have dropped 0 points. They've scored 23 goals in 9 games. Martinelli's the most successful dribbler in the Premier League this season. Saka and Jesus are not too far behind him. And they talk about the directness of the attack. And it's so true. Every single facet of Arsenal's game right now, we were talking about this on the show the other day, they're moving in units, but those units are harmonious. Everyone knows their job and is doing their job very, very well. Speed is the key, and that has been a major factor, is getting off to a fast start. 58 seconds it took the Gunners to score against Liverpool at the Emirates over the weekend. And I think Xhaka and Odegaard are helping that too as well. In terms of the mentality monsters, they talk about Jurgen Klopp coining that phrase for Liverpool. And now they're saying that Arsenal have kind of taken over that mantelpiece. And of course, the icing on the cake would be for them to win multiple trophies under Arteta. But there's no doubt that the mentality is part of their success this season. Jesus coming in, Zinchenko coming in, serial winners. But also, I think adversity has been a key factor. The way the season ended, and then also, that Manchester United game that Arsenal really should have won, and a lot of people think Arsenal should have won at Old Trafford. Those missed chances. They talk about how many touches the team has had in the penalty box, and Saka and Jesus and Martinelli are up there with Haaland and Diaz and Salah. But we're now seeing them convert those chances. So I think adversity has been a massive factor as well.
Sophie, how confident are you that you can actually maybe not only challenge for the title this season, but even win it?
Oh, this is the next question, the next frontier. Well, look, Manchester City are an incredible team, and they've proven themselves year after year. We're a little far away from that, but we're competitive in the Premier League again, and I think that's what Arsenal fans want to see. Let's see what happens. The proof will be in the May pudding. Not sure this is going to be our year, but we're certainly going to give it a good go.
Yeah, I think that, the thing with the standard that Manchester City are playing at the moment, any team that wants to win the title might well have to get 90, 92, 95 points. That's not a level that I think Arsenal can sustain over a whole season. But this is something that's more about the title challenge this season. It's about what's being built over the last 2 or 3 years. What could yet be built over the next 2 or 3 seasons. So, I mean, the major factor, I mean, one of the factors not really mentioned, because it didn't really fit to the bullet point, is time. You know, Arsenal have given Arteta time. They've backed him in the transfer market. They've stood by him through some really quite rotten periods of form. And, you know, that's going to be the key to getting Arsenal where they have to be.
Right, well, what about
I think
what
the World Cup, sorry, I was just going to add to that real quick. The World Cup could throw a spanner in the works for a lot of teams. We're, you know, players could come back injured from that. The thing about that too is Haaland's going to have a month off. So that's not good for anybody. So yeah, but the World Cup could be a key component here as the season kicks off in that final act.
Yeah, it's just different to how it's ever been before, certainly in our lifetimes. Let's just look into the Sun now, and you've mentioned Liverpool a little bit there. Let's talk about them, because the headline is quite catching, actually. It's quite striking, I should say. Ticking Klopp is their back page, and the story contains some interesting comments from the former Liverpool midfielder and Germany international Dietmar Hamann. So what's he been saying, Sophie?
Well, this is an interesting one because this is a manager, Jurgen Klopp. I understand Liverpool are 10th, and, you know, it's shocking to me that Arsenal are 14 points ahead of them, considering we finished 23 points behind them last season. This is a manager who's won the Champions League, he's won the Premier League, the FA Cup, the League Cup, the Super Cup, the Club World Cup, and they're going through a very rough patch. And Jonathan just alluded to how Arsenal have supported Arteta and Liverpool have definitely supported Klopp. He's saying, and I quote, "This is something we haven't seen at Liverpool for 5 years. Maybe these are little signs that people have little problems with the team or even the manager. This Liverpool team looks tired. They look pedestrian and flat. I'm not sure where the spark is going to come from. I wouldn't write them off, but my imagination doesn't let me see where the spark is going to come from in the next few weeks." Interesting comments.
Yeah, they are. And Jonathan, do you think that Klopp actually is under pressure? Because a lot of people are saying, well, he's got a lot of credit in the bank, but the Sun are claiming that he is under pressure.
Well, it kind of depends where this pressure is coming from. I certainly don't think he's under too much internal pressure. You know, he has an almost unlimited bank of credit at Liverpool, which may actually be one of the roots of the problem. I mean, if you look back through Klopp's history, 6 or 7 seasons appears to be the point at which things started going wrong for him. At Mainz, they were relegated in his 6th season, and he resigned at the end of his 7th. And at Dortmund, his 7th season went so badly they were actually bottom of the Bundesliga around Christmas. And you know, there are lots of differences between those scenarios. But one thing that does feel quite recognisable from this Liverpool team is just the lack of energy, and that's just the lack of energy on the pitch in terms of pressing, in terms of running, in terms of actually going that extra yard, you know, which made Liverpool such a formidable team. And also just there seems to be a kind of a drop in intensity emotionally. You know, those great Liverpool sides from the last 3 or 4 years, they've had a real kind of I don't know. There's been a real menace to them. They feel totally supercharged, and they all look a bit tired. They look a bit tired, and Klopp looks flat. He's getting a bit irritable in press conferences. And you know, for people in Germany who have followed Klopp's career all through the Bundesliga, these are quite recognisable signs that things aren't right.
We're going to get to the next story now, because we're just running out of time. We want to get through a couple more, especially this one, actually, because it's your story in The Guardian, Jonathan. It's about the former Spain goalkeeper Iker Casillas. He's received, the picture there is behind me, widespread criticism for posting a tweet claiming he was gay. Now, his former international teammate and the former Barcelona captain Carlos Puyol, he's come under fire as well for his response. Casillas claims that his Twitter account was hacked. So, Jonathan, tell us more about this article. It's your article.
Well, let's see if I can remember it. Well, I think it's on one level you can say, okay, it's just a couple of silly tweets. It's a joke. You know, it's Twitter. Does any of this actually matter? And I think it really genuinely does, because we have seen, in the last few years with prominent instances of footballers coming out, and what we can only assume are dozens, hundreds, thousands more who are waiting to see if the time is right to come out. And I think there's something quite really cruel and cynical and exploitative in Casillas, even though he claimed he was hacked. But Casillas and Puyol kind of making light of that moment, which should be such a moment of completion and communion and mutual support. and using that, for humour. And I think it says a lot about the underlying culture in perhaps Spanish men's football, but in the game more generally, and also who is considered an acceptable target for humour. So I think it was quite interesting to me in terms of what it exposed about the power imbalances within the game.
I'd like to thank Jonathan for writing that article, because as a gay woman, I have to say that one of the toughest things to do in life, and I think most gay people will tell you, is to take that massive step and come out. And, it isn't a joke, and it's a pretty life-changing experience, and probably one of the most difficult moments in someone's life. So it's important that we kind of create these platforms where we can have these conversations, and that, we're allowing people to feel confident that they can do this, and especially in sports. Women's football is a lot different, and I hope that one day, someday, men's football can follow suit and have those same freedoms, and players do feel safe to come out and have their voice heard as well.
On a similar subject, if we end with England, because all the papers are covering the story that Harry Kane will wear a One Love armband at the World Cup in Qatar, even if it's prohibited by FIFA. So what do you make of that, Sophie?
It's bold, it's brave, and it takes moments like that to create change, to create true change. So if England do that, I'm sure the majority of people will be behind them and will support them. And these are the moments that you have to capitalise on in order to really move the conversation forward and create, again, a safe platform for people to have these conversations. And who better to do that? And what better picture to see than the England captain and the England team taking that massive step?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it's quite a pathetically weak gesture. This whole a rainbow armband, which isn't quite a rainbow, which doesn't really say anything about what you want to see. It's a kind of, something must happen, but we're not quite sure what. I do get that a lot of the, England, the FA, and a lot of the other federations are prepared to take a fine, which will be 10,000 euros, 20,000 euros. That's 2 pints in Qatar. So frankly, it's the lowest of low bars for FIFA to clear in terms of sanctioning this very small protest. And yet again, FIFA have failed to clear it.
Are you planning to go to the World Cup, Sophie?
But for someone somewhere, that gesture could mean everything. It could give them the confidence to say something, whether it's about themselves or think about saying it. These conversations
that gesture, that's all I've said.
Well, why are we having these conversations a month before the World Cup? These are conversations we should have had, years ago and prior to that. The fact that these topics are coming up now, the World Cup is like literally around the corner. So I think there are people that will take whatever we can to have that presence and to have that visual in a country where things aren't so simple and easy as they are in other spots in the world.
So I interrupted you slightly there, Sophie, but I was just going to ask if you're planning to go to Qatar for the World Cup.
Yes.
Yes, you are. Great. OK. Well, Jonathan, Sophie, great to see you both. Thank you very much indeed. Right, last night, Jamie Carragher and Roy Keane